On my wedding day, my greedy fiancé slapped me across the face and announced that he would marry my younger, pregnant sister because, after marriage, she would become the owner of my $2 million business. My younger sister had also agreed to this marriage, and everyone was shocked. I decided on revenge, and within 1 hour, they were both arrested. My name is Sophia Turner, and I've lived in Chicago all my life. I never imagined that my story would be one of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate triumph, but here I am, telling it. It all started with a dream that began in my mother's kitchen when I was just a little girl. I remember watching her bake, the warm sense of cinnamon and fresh bread filling the house. There was something magical about it, something that felt like home. I didn't realize it then, but those early moments were shaping my future. My parents always encouraged me to follow my passions, and when I grew older, I decided to pursue my dream of becoming a pastry chef. After graduating culinary school, I worked in a few bakeries around the city, but I knew I wanted more. I wanted to create something of my own. 3 years ago, I opened my bakery. It wasn't easy. I worked long hours, waking up at the crack of dawn, mixing dough, kneading it with my hands, and baking the most delicious pastries I could imagine. Slowly, my hard work paid off. Customers began to notice. The little bakery, nestled in a quiet part of Chicago, started to gain a reputation. I was proud of what I had built from nothing, no financial support, no shortcuts, just passion and perseverance. But there was one thing I didn't expect: my responsibility to my younger sister, Lila. When our parents died in a car accident 7 years ago, everything changed. I was only 25, and suddenly, I was the one who had to take care of Lila. She was 21 at the time, still trying to figure out what she wanted to do with her life. I stepped up without question, putting my own dreams on hold to help her get on her feet. At first, I didn't mind. I loved Lila, and taking care of her felt like the right thing to do. I found her a place to live, helped her with her bills, and even got her a job at my bakery. It wasn't much, but it was something. I trained her, taught her the ropes of the business, and paid her weekly. I thought we had a solid bond, that we were family who had gone through the same tragedy and emerged stronger because of it. But sometimes, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Lila was always a bit impulsive and headstrong. She didn't have the same work ethic as I did. It frustrated me at times, but I brushed it off. After all, she was my sister. We had each other. Then, everything changed one evening. It was a regular Wednesday, nothing special. I was behind the counter at my bakery, rolling dough for a batch of croissants, when he walked in. Ryan Moore. He was handsome, well-dressed, and had a kind of charm that immediately drew people in. He ordered a coffee and a muffin, and we started talking. At first, it was casual, just small talk. He told me he had recently moved to Chicago for business and was looking for a good place to grab a bite. Over the next few weeks, he became a regular customer. We started talking more, and soon he was asking me to join him for dinner after work. I was hesitant at first. I wasn't used to dating, especially while running a business. But there was something about him, something magnetic that I couldn't ignore. I agreed to have dinner with him, and that's when things started to change. Ryan was smooth. He was everything I thought I wanted: successful, charming, and attentive. We talked for hours on our first date. I learned about his upbringing, his work, and his aspirations. He seemed to have it all together, and I admired that. Soon, we were spending more time together, going to dinners, visiting museums, and even taking weekend trips. He made me feel like I was the only one who mattered. For the first time in years, I felt truly happy. And then, just as I was starting to believe in the possibility of a future with him, he proposed. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. He painted this beautiful picture of our life together, running a business, starting a family, and growing old together. It felt like a fairy tale. I couldn't believe it when he asked me to marry him. I was overwhelmed with joy. This was it. This was my chance to build a future with someone I thought I could trust. I shared the news with Lila, excited to tell her about my engagement, expecting her to be just as happy as I was. But her reaction was odd. She barely seemed interested. Her smile was forced, and her excitement was clearly lacking. I shrugged it off at first. Lila had always been unpredictable, and I told myself it was just a mood swing. After all, she was my sister. She had always been there for me, and I had always been there for her. What could possibly go wrong? As the wedding date drew closer, things between Ryan and me only grew more perfect. I was consumed with wedding preparations, choosing the perfect dress, planning the ceremony, and dreaming about our life together. But there was one thing I couldn't shake. Lila. Something in her eyes had changed. She seemed distant, colder. One morning, just a few weeks before the wedding, I was at home getting ready for the day when I noticed Lila's phone on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up, showing a text message from Ryan. I don't know why I felt the urge to check it, but I did. What I read shattered my world. The texts between Ryan and Lila weren't just flirtatious. They were downright cruel. They talked about using me, about how they could take over the bakery, and how they'd never have to worry about money again. The most shocking part? Lila was pregnant. Pregnant with Ryan's child. It was as if the ground had been ripped out from under me. My mind couldn't process it. How could they do this? How could my sister, the person I trusted more than anyone, betray me like this? And Ryan, how could he after everything we shared? I felt the weight of their betrayal in every inch of my body. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Not like this. I had built this life with my own two hands, and I wasn't about to let them destroy it. That morning, I confronted Lila. The coldness in her eyes made my blood run cold. When I asked her why, she simply shrugged. "This is my personal matter, and you have no right to interfere," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. I wanted to scream, to break down, but I didn't. I couldn't. I had to be strong. And then it hit me. I had to expose them. I had to show the world what they had done. I wasn't going to be a victim in this story. I was going to take back control. But how would I do that? How could I possibly confront them both and survive this? I didn't know yet, but I would find a way. I had to. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur. I kept my distance from Lila, too hurt to even look at her. How could she do this to me? And Ryan, he was still acting as if everything was normal. He had no idea that I knew the truth, that I had read every cruel word he'd sent to my sister. I tried to focus on the bakery, on the business I'd worked so hard to build. But it wasn't easy. The weight of the betrayal pressed down on me every second. The thought of standing next to Ryan at the altar, saying vows that felt so empty now, twisted my stomach. One evening, just days before the wedding, I decided I had to confront Ryan. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to know why he would do this to me, to us. I had planned to keep my composure, to speak to him calmly. But the moment I saw him walk through the bakery door, my anger flared. "Ryan," I said, my voice shaking. "We need to talk." He smiled, that same charming smile I had once fallen for. "Of course, Sophia. What's on your mind?" I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. I'd seen the real Ryan now, the deceitful, selfish man he was. "I know about you and Lila. The affair. The plans to take over my business. And the baby." His smile faltered for a split second, but he quickly regained his composure. "Sophia, please. Let's not do this here. I promise you, everything will make sense soon. Just trust me." I wasn't about to let him talk his way out of it. "Don't lie to me. I know everything." The room felt suffocating. His eyes darted around, but he didn't seem sorry, just nervous. "It's not what you think. Don't you dare say that." I was nearly yelling now. "How could you do this to me, Ryan? To us?" Ryan took a deep breath, looking like he was preparing himself for a speech. But before he could say another word, the door to the bakery swung open. Lila walked in, and when she saw the tension between us, her expression hardened. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice cool. "I know everything," I said to her, my voice steady but fierce. "About you and Ryan. The affair. The plan. The baby." Lila didn't flinch. Instead, she crossed her arms and leaned against the counter. "So what?" she said, her tone casual. "This is my life, Sophia. Not yours. You have no right to tell me how to live it." The coldness in her words hit me harder than anything Ryan had said. I couldn't believe this was my sister, the person I had raised, the person I had supported through everything. "You're wrong, Lila," I whispered, a tear slipping down my cheek. "I've always had your back, and this is how you repay me?" Ryan stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. "Sophia, we never meant to hurt you. It just happened. We weren't planning on this. But now we're in love." I could hardly contain my rage. "In love?" I repeated, incredulous. "You're both disgusting." Ryan's face turned red with frustration, but I could see the panic in his eyes. He wasn't used to being confronted like this. And Lila, she didn't care. She had chosen her path, and nothing I said was going to change that. "You'll regret this," I said quietly, my voice shaking with fury. "Both of you." I walked out of the bakery, leaving them both standing there, watching me. The storm inside me hadn't passed, but it had made me realize something. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life. I was going to fight back, no matter what it took. That night, I sat in my apartment, my mind racing. I needed to expose the truth, to show the world what they had done. And I would soon enough. The confrontation at the bakery didn't go as I had hoped. It didn't bring the closure I needed, and it certainly didn't make me feel better. It only made me feel more trapped in my own life, as if I were suffocating under the weight of Ryan and Lila's betrayal. But that night, after the anger and the hurt subsided, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I had worked too hard for too long to have everything I built taken from me by the people I loved most. No, I was going to fight for what was mine. I was going to expose them both, Ryan and Lila, and I wasn't going to stop until they paid for what they had done. I started by gathering evidence. I knew I couldn't go after them with just my word. I needed something concrete, something that would expose their deceit in front of everyone. I hired a private investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Claire, who had helped many others uncover hidden truths. I didn't waste any time. I gave her all the information I had. Ryan's background, his relationship with Lila, and everything I knew about their plan to steal my bakery from me. It didn't take long for Claire to dig up what I needed. Ryan wasn't the wealthy businessman he had made himself out to be. In fact, he was deep in debt, buried in it. It turned out that his so-called business ventures were nothing more than failed investments and shady deals. He had been looking for a way out, and my bakery was his solution. He thought that by marrying me, he could take over my business, make it his, and solve all his financial problems. And Lila had played along, thinking she would get her hands on a share of it too. When Claire presented me with the evidence, I could hardly believe it. I was stunned by how far they had gone to manipulate me, to use me as a pawn in their game. But there was one thing that kept me going, the knowledge that I was not powerless. I had proof now. I had the truth, and truth was my weapon. I didn't waste any time. I took the evidence straight to a lawyer. I knew I needed to protect my bakery, my business, and my reputation. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Evelyn, helped me prepare a legal case against both Ryan and Lila. She explained that we could pursue charges for fraud, conspiracy, and emotional distress. It was a strong case. I felt a surge of confidence, knowing that I had a path forward. But even as I prepared for battle, I knew there would be risks. Ryan was dangerous. He had charm, yes, but he also had the ability to manipulate and twist situations in his favor. He might try to turn people against me. He might try to cover his tracks. But I wasn't going to let him. I had been betrayed once, but I wasn't going to let him do it again. As the wedding day loomed closer, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. I knew the confrontation was inevitable. I couldn't let him go through with it, not after everything that had happened. But I had one last card to play. I would expose the truth, not just to Lila and Ryan, but to everyone who had ever supported me. I would make sure the world knew what kind of people they really were. The night before the wedding, I made the decision. I would attend the ceremony. I would show up, face them both, and tell the world what they had done. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be comfortable. But it was the only way to end this chapter of my life. I couldn't let them win. I had built my bakery from the ground up. I wasn't going to let them take it from me without a fight. And I was ready for whatever came next. The day of the wedding arrived, and I stood in front of the mirror, dressed in my best suit, feeling a strange mix of anger and determination. I had no intention of playing the part of the heartbroken bride. This wasn't about me getting closure or redemption, it was about taking back control of my life and my business. It was about standing up to Ryan and Lila, exposing them for the deceitful, manipulative people they were, and showing the world that I wasn't a victim. I arrived at the church just before the ceremony began. It was a grand affair, with decorations everywhere, flowers lining the aisles, and a crowd of people gathered to witness what they thought would be the union of a beautiful couple. But I knew the truth. I knew that what was about to happen wasn't a wedding, it was a lie. Ryan stood at the altar, looking every bit the handsome, charming man he had always appeared to be. He smiled at the guests, his charisma on full display. But when he saw me walk in, his smile faltered. He looked nervous, caught off guard. He hadn't expected me to show up, but there I was, ready to expose the truth. Lila was standing nearby, her eyes wide as she caught sight of me. Her face immediately tightened with anxiety, and I could see the guilt flashing in her eyes. But she quickly masked it, adopting that same indifferent, cold attitude she had shown me all these weeks. It was almost as if she was daring me to say something, as if she knew I was about to shatter the illusion. Without saying a word, I walked to the front of the church and stood in front of the gathered guests. I didn't care about the formalities anymore. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "But there's something I need to say before this wedding continues." Ryan's face turned pale as he looked at me, but he tried to cover it up with a nervous laugh. "Sophia, let's not do this here. We can talk." "No," I cut him off, my voice rising. "This needs to be said now, in front of everyone." The room fell silent, and I could feel all eyes on me. I took a deep breath, knowing there was no turning back now. Ryan Moore is not who he says he is. He's been lying to all of you, and to me. He's been having an affair with my sister, Lila, and together, they've planned to take over my business. Ryan is drowning in debt, and he thought he could use me to fix his problems. And Lila is pregnant with his child. Gasps echoed through the church, and I saw people start to whisper among themselves. Ryan's face went from pale to red, his nerves completely gone. He stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. "Sophia, you're wrong. This isn't what it looks like." "No, Ryan," I said, my voice cutting through his protests. "You've been lying to everyone, including me. And now, the truth is out." I turned to Lila, who was standing frozen by the altar. "And you," I continued, my voice quieter but no less firm, "I trusted you more than anyone. You were my sister. You were supposed to be my family. But you chose greed and betrayal over everything we had." Lila looked away, her eyes filled with shame, but she didn't say a word. She couldn't justify what she had done. Neither of them could. The silence that followed was deafening. I turned to the crowd, my heart racing. I've spent the last few days gathering evidence, proof of Ryan's lies and their scheme. I've contacted the authorities, and they're already looking into this. The truth is out, and I won't be silenced. As the room began to stir, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. It was finally over. I had exposed them for who they were. The truth had been revealed, and justice would follow. The rest of the ceremony was a blur. The police arrived shortly after, and Ryan and Lila were escorted out, charged with fraud, conspiracy, and other crimes. It felt surreal to see them both taken away, their lives falling apart in an instant. I wasn't sorry for them, not even a little bit. They had made their choices, and now they would face the consequences. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I fought a legal battle to secure my bakery, and the court awarded me damages for the emotional and financial toll they had caused. But more than that, I learned something invaluable. I was stronger than I had ever realized. I had survived a betrayal that could have shattered me, but instead, I had used it to fuel my strength. I expanded my bakery, grew my business, and, slowly, I regained the trust of my community. As for Lila, she tried to reach out to me. She sent me messages, begging for forgiveness, claiming she was sorry. But I couldn't find it in myself to forgive her, not for what she had done. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it, I told her the last time we spoke. It hurt, but I had to let her go. Now, as I stand here looking back on everything, I realize that I am not the same person I was before all of this. I am not the victim. I am a survivor. I faced betrayal. I faced heartbreak, but in the end, I chose justice. I chose to rebuild my life, and I chose to be stronger. And in doing so, I proved that resilience and justice can triumph over deceit and greed.